Urban Media Today talks sports with Ray Porter Jr., Vince Butts, and Trevin A. Jones on Urban Media Today Radio.
It's game time!
Urban Media Today talks sports. I'm not going to say who they are again because you already know who they are, but I will give my guests respect. You have Brother Kenn Rashad, HBCU Sports.com. You got Dr.Kenyatta Cavil inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Greg and Ray, they don't know him. Anyway, we're talking HBCU Sports. The platform is going to be this one and COVID-19. But before we get to that, we got to finish up on this Notre Dame issue. We were talking about Notre Dame, whether or not this is a one-time shot or it's going to be a long-term deal with them joining the ACC. So Doc last commented on it. As we're coming back, Coach Hoyd said to me, yo, Trev, you got to give me some time on this one. Coach, floor is yours.
Appreciate it, man. So, you know, it all comes down to the Jimmys and Joes, okay? So when you start talking about, you know, joining conferences and things of that nature, Notre Dame been talking about joining the ACC for probably about the last 4 years. It's been a big conversation with the boosters. But if you understand the canvas, or actually the platform of college football right now with joining networks, Notre Dame's is like 20 years behind. The revenue sharing and all those things that they were missing out on. They had a great TV deal with NBC, but they were missing out on a key component, which is recruiting. Notre Dame for years and years and years have been a bully because they had mega dollars to go out and recruit nationally. Well, that's changed now. As you see players from Florida going to Oregon, players from California going to Clemson. You see players going all over the country and just bypassing Notre Dame. Well, they had to have a conversation with the donors and the boosters of Notre Dame. You guys got to come in and get in so you compete. And the way you compete is by getting into conferences. As you see what's happening in the SWAC conference. The SWAC conference just really blew up. I mean, membership-wise, it got a lot more exposure because they added some more teams with a lot more swag. Well, I think that this injection of Notre Dame to the ACC just gave it a little bit more power in the recruiting space. So now players can say, well, I'm going to compete against Clemson recruiting me, Georgia Tech, and now I have Notre Dame in that conversation. That's a big conversation as far as going and sitting down with moms or dads or single moms saying, hey, you have an opportunity to play in this mega conference, and these are the teams you're going to play versus this random schedule of whoever we'll be able to select. So recruiting is really where they really help ACC. I mean, the Notre Dame brand, it really helps ACC, but it really helps Notre Dame in recruiting.
Good stuff. Now, you were mentioning some figures, and Doc got excited. He said, you got to talk about that. I think you guys were talking about the TV contract and the money there. Yeah. What were you saying about that?
Well, I mean, if you look it up, I mean, they were spitting out numbers like $1.8 billion, you know, in this TV deal in AC. I mean, you're talking about $1 billion.
Did you just say $1.8 billion? Billion with a
yes.
B?
Yes. Head nodding. Yes, with a B. So you can see.
So Notre Dame's been getting that all by itself.
That's a revenue share between all the teams in ACC.
Okay, got you. Okay.
Yeah, ACC, when the last deal they signed with ABC/ESPN, where they created their own network similar to what you are familiar with, I'm sure, with the SEC, it was $1.8 billion, essentially $240 million annually. And as Coach was alluding to, Notre Dame's deal, which was done before all these deals exploded, and now they're in trouble because you don't know what people are going to come back to the table with COVID-19. Their deal was like $15 million annually. So that gives you an idea of where Notre Dame is now back. When it signed the deal, it was unheard of. They were in front of everybody. But because of time lapse and the money explodes and changes so fast, now they're behind the heels. So he's making an argument that it looks like Notre Dame may be having that wandering eye and saying, hey, is it better for us to have conference affiliation than it's not, which is a great point that Coach is making.
Good stuff. We're gonna go around the room real quick. What I want to ask you guys is this question. Do you think that the Power 5 conferences are going to be the only ones to play college football this season if it happens? It looks like it's going that way. But we'll go around the room, and Doc, I'll start with you first.
I have my doubts that they're going to be the only one play. As I said earlier, let me make sure I get this on the table. I'm not convinced totally that the Power 5 schools are going to play. I think they're going to do everything in their power to play. But unfortunately, there's one thing that they don't have control of, again, which is COVID-19. COVID-19, in every indication, is not slowing down across this country. Unfortunately, you talked about me being here in Houston, Texas. It's not looking good. We already have to change our institutional framework. We were looking at doing hybrid, meaning that we're going to have some classes on campus and some off in terms of that. That has just changed for not just the colleges and universities in our area, but the high school, independent school districts. I'm talking about they're delaying the start date. They're going to start everybody online until September 19th. But you're going to have University of Houston playing football the next 5, while everybody else is at home, while everybody else is counseled from high school to this. You're going to have the Houston Texans trying to play. I think it's going to be very interesting. Let's skip over here to the state of Florida. Not looking very well. Arizona, Kenn's old home back in California, unfortunately, is not looking very well, right? You talk about Georgia, and you just keep going down the line. Things are not going in the direction that suggested us that there is going to be playing football at just about any level, other than if they can find a way to copy this NBA bubble that we talked about. So what does that mean? Are there going to be some teams that try to play it? Yes. Power 5, somebody's going to try to figure it out. So yes, I would say yes. Next 5 group of 5, or somebody going to try to get it done? Yes. Even at the FCS level, we still have what I refer to as these historically white colleges and university conferences. They're looking at playing. What is starting to make it a little more challenging, though, as they try to figure out how to play, is the Power 5 have now, all but the Big 12 have said essentially they're only playing conference-only games. Started with Big 10, Pac-12. We just saw yesterday the ACC talking about the Notre Dame model. They're going to a 10-game schedule. They're having one non-conference schedule they can play. And then today, SEC announced that they're only playing a 10-game schedule. So if you what they call the group of 5, what is the rationale to play? Because now your non-conference games where you can get the big bucks are gone. How are they going to play the FCS teams that were looking at having their money? So these monies that we're talking about are slowly going away. So I'm not too sure about that.
Hey Doc, let me kind of piggyback on that and just kind of give my theory on that is that because the TV contracts, they have to play a certain amount of league games. And so you can imagine if in that contract they say, okay, you have to play a minimum of 10 games, where you're still gonna get that TV money. So in the Pac-12, like the Pac-12 schools are getting anywhere between $21 to $23 million per year for the football program. So if you keep that league or that that conference schedule together and you play that still guarantees you to get that money. And you have all these these out of sight payrolls that these teams have. This is another way for them to kind of maybe save revenue at the expense of these college athletes, and which we know majority of them are African American.
Yeah, I got that. See, I can't even go there. Kenn, go ahead and weigh in, Kenn, because every time I'm coming to you, Kenn, I'm rubbing my hands because I saw some of the stories that you had, bruh. I just can't wait to get into them. But do you think that the Power 5 schools are going to be the only schools that play football this college football season?
No, because we've already seen where there have been a number of FCS conferences who've already announced that they plan on playing. Granted, the schedules are modified. The Southland is determined to play. The Ohio Valley is determined to play, and a number of other FCS programs. But I am in agreement with Doc. They may attempt to play. I just don't know if they're going to be able to complete an entire season, if they're in a position to where they can play at all. There is absolutely nothing that shows right now that we are in a position to play football. And all I will say is this: the SWAC has shown us the way.
Yeah,
that's all I'm saying.
Gremlin night.
They didn't just say we're just going to move. We're going to play football in the spring. They already have a plan in place. The SWAC has shown us the way, and these SEC conferences and these other Power 5 conferences are going to probably have no choice but then to say, you know what, it may be time for us to implement the SWAC plan as our plan to move forward with the potential to play football in the spring. The SWAC has shown us the way.
You heard him. Pay attention. Ray Porter Jr. You covered Pitt and the Steelers for us, but with Pitt, I know they just announced they're adjusting their schedule to like an 11-game schedule, I think is what it was said by the AD. What did you think that they're actually going to play this season?
In my opinion, I mean, I agree with the gentlemen. There shouldn't be. There shouldn't be at all. These are kids, you know, these are parents' kids. My wife and I talked about what if our son was on campus at this time? What if he was playing football or other sports? It would be a concern. I'd be ready to get the boy home for real. But the thing about it is, I agree with what everybody's saying. The Power Five, not just the Power Five, but other schools will be playing. Teams are playing, obviously. As you know, the FCS, like you said, Ken and Doc as well, that the other teams are playing. Or other schools are going to be playing, other conferences are going to be playing. But here's my opinion on this. If the Power Five decided, hey, to make that hard decision, and I'm sure that the NCAA is basically delaying, but now it's August, you have to make a decision, make a public statement about it. That if they decide not to do it, it's going to have a ripple effect with everybody. That if they don't do it, then everybody else is not going to do it. That's how I feel. But the SWAC, I tip my hat to them as well because they have a plan, and everybody should take notes from that plan. So that's how I feel about it.
Leave it to an HBCU conference to lead the way. That's all I got to say. Anyway, we're talking about the COVID-19. We're talking about college football in general. But I want to break it down a little bit because I asked Doc and I asked Ken to join the show because they are part of the – and as we look at it, there are many brands now covering HBCU sports in some respect. But there's been some brands that have been there for years and have been doing it, legitimate brands. I'm not saying the other ones aren't legitimate. I'm just saying there's professionals out there that have been covering it. And these two are two of those professionals. So I definitely wanted them on the show because Doc and Ken, I heard about North Carolina A&T maybe trying to play anyway if the MEAC wasn't playing. And then I heard about FAMU having their players having to sign waivers, and if I'm a FAMU Rattler parent, I'm furious because that means if you're not allowing students on campus, but you're going to treat my son who's an athlete and a football player and say, okay, come up here, sign this waiver, now go out there and play. So if you get sick, that's on you. Ken, you got to talk about it, bro.
Well, look, I am probably the biggest advocate of HBCUs out there. And, you know, Ross Dellinger of Sports Illustrated reached out to me and he wanted to get some comments when Morehouse made the decision that they were going to, you know, cancel fall sports. Mm-hmm. And I obviously applauded the decision because it was clearly an indication that the decision wasn't based upon money, you know, and David Moore, the president at Morehouse, basically stated that we were already losing money with football anyway. So it wasn't about money. So because of his actions, that took me to say, but this is the HBCU way. You know, we put our players before money. Boy, did A&T and FAMU make a liar out of me. Because it wasn't long afterwards that we found out that, you know, players were on campus. And keep in mind that this also was not too long or right around the time when Grambling head coach Bobs made the comment that people need to keep in mind, you know, and these universities need to keep in mind that these are somebody's this is somebody's baby. This is their child, you know. So let's not have, you know, these are supposedly voluntary, you know, workouts. But, you know, let's not get these kids on campus when they shouldn't be there. And then rest assured, A&T and FAMU, I'm not going to say they got caught. I don't necessarily say they tried to hide it, but clearly, you know, and in the spirit of trying to gain that competitive edge, they allowed thinking that they could do something that apparently Clemson showed that they couldn't do. They thought they could do something that Texas couldn't do. We had already seen instances where this was happening, and yet they decided to take that risk anyway. And so, while I pray that all of those players who were infected fully recover. I guess that there's a part of me that says you may test negative. I just hope that there are no lingering impacts as a result of being tested that affect you going forward in life. So, needless to say, I was a little disappointed that this took place. And then for FAMU to even take it a step further by admitting that, they require players to sign waivers. And I did confirm with A&T through Earl Hilton that, that was not the case for them. But for FAMU to take that type of measure or to take that step, I'll admit it was disheartening.
Now, FAMU's a rattler. A rattler's a snake, right? Right? So now, I'm not saying FAMU is snakes, but I've never known a snake to bite itself. It's Urban Media Today Talk Sports. At the end of the third quarter, we're going to come back with more on this show right after this brief timeout.
Urban Media Today is your source for entertainment, news, sports, and lifestyle. It's your online resource for health and fitness, providing tips to decrease your heart disease or increase your good spirits. When you can't find who made the top picks in HBCU sports or what part of the country is most exciting or affordable to travel with the entire family, Urban Media Today is there to provide you with all that you need and just a click away. Log on to urbanmediatoday.com now. Find us on social media. Urban Media Today, your lifestyle information and blog website.